This is Player Destruction, an official TF2 game mode. Kill a guy, pick up his stuff, and turn it in. But this game mode wasn't even created by Valve. It was the work of an amateur mapper making something in his free time. How did we get here? I interviewed the creator, Egan, who traced the origin of Player Destruction to Arena. Back in 2014, he was a big fan of Arena and frequented a community server devoted to it, but he started to notice its flaws. Dying and having to wait for the next round wasn't fun, and it's not friendly to inexperienced players. So how could you take what's fun about Arena, the intimate player interactions, and make it more accessible? What if Blue had to attack Red's control point? Blue players get passive healing, and if a blue player dies, we spawn a skeleton and start a timer. The skeleton would hunt down players of any team, and the timer counts down from 30 seconds. When it hits 0, all dead red players are respawned. This map was novel, but ultimately a gimmick that got boring after a few minutes, so the experiments continued. Okay, what if blue players only had 1 life, and there were only 4 of them, but they had 10 times health, backstab protection, and infinite crits? Blue team has 1 minute and 30 seconds to capture 4 control points spread around the map, but red team would infinitely respawn. This was also fun, but still just a gimmick that would quickly get old. Back to the drawing board. Later that year, Valve released Robot Destruction. Robot Destruction was a new game mode created by Valve where you basically run into the opposing team's base and destroy their NPC robots for points. At first, Egan tried twisting the game mode to create a 5 CP map that required teams to control every point to win. The catch was that after a certain amount of inactivity, robots would spawn on the point, which you needed to destroy before you were allowed to cap. This experiment wasn't that great, but in the process of creating this map, he noticed something. You could repurpose Robot Destruction into a bootleg Headhunter mode from Halo Reach. In the past, this wasn't possible because there's no way to emulate the item that players drop on death. But now, mappers can spawn robots and control how many cores they drop. Mappers can also keep track of a player's location and detect when they die. So when someone dies, you could teleport a robot to their location, then kill the robot, dropping a core the player can pick up, which would effectively be a scoring item that drops on player death. Normal robot destruction ends when one team reaches the core limit, so here the game would simply end after enough cores were collected from player deaths. To see if this would even work, Egan created PD Nucleus. It's Nucleus, except the bridges never extend. The central point doesn't open, the death pit has been covered up, and of course, it's pseudo Headhunter. Teleporting robots around and killing them turned out to actually work in practice, and PD Nucleus was positively received, so it was time to make a real map for it. At the time, there was a TF2Maps.net contest called Mercs vs Aliens being held, themed around UFOs. Entering the contest and submitting a PD map would be a good opportunity to have people play and critique the game mode, so he started work on Watergate. Watergate's layout was heavily inspired by this area in a Dishonored 1 DLC. I don't think I need to say anything else. He added a boat here because it was, quote, cool. Also, this lumberyard staircase, and these pipes for Watergate spawn. From there, he built out the rest of the map. He enjoyed the way Arena Granary made use of verticality, which inspired the layers in Watergate. He made the cores into piles of cash, and experimented with a bonus objective, a control point that if you capped, dropped extra cash for your team. Since this is an earlier version that's still constrained by simply being a really weird robot destruction map, The UFO that came around wasn't a capture zone, but instead it would barf cash onto the bridge. It could also suck you up. On November 26, 2014, in collaboration with mapper Backstretch, who helped with detailing, Watergate Beta 5 was finished and submitted to the contest. After great suspense, Watergate was crowned second place. The contest ended, and that was the end of Watergate's story. Egan went on to make a few more maps, until suddenly, in January 31st, 2015, every map submitted to the contest was given feedback by Valve. It still wasn't officially confirmed that this contest would be part of an official update, and technically, Valve simply played everyone's maps and wanted to give feedback for some reason. But you don't have to be a detective to put 2 and 2 together here. It was time to revisit Watergate. Unsurprisingly, in their feedback, Valve was perplexed about the robots and asked why the map was running robot destruction. At this point, the PD game mode was entirely controlled in Hammer, which severely limited what Egan could do. To further refine PD's mechanics, it would need to be turned into a sourcemod plugin. So that's what happened. With the plugin, they were able to add a lot of features. Player score display, by making 100 custom particles that go from 1 to 50 for each team. The UFO capture zone, and with that, hazard scripts on the HUD that indicated a team's capture potential, created by editing the robot destruction reactor core data. Changing the robot destruction core into beer. Beer because, inspired by Dishonored Again, Watergate is themed as a distillery and bar. Detecting if players walked into a spawn room, and forcing the beers to drop so players couldn't hide. And of course, team leaders. In a previous version, Egan gave team leaders a makeshift outline. Leaders would be given an invisible reactor core, so everyone could see them through walls. But since you're technically carrying an intel, players could simply press the drop intel button and remove their outlines, so this was shelved early on. With the sourcemod plugin, team leader outlines returned. For the secondary team leader mechanic, several ideas were tested. At first, they tried allowing team leaders to see everyone and their score through walls, and later, only your teammates through walls. But in the end, this was deemed too much visual clutter. Other experiments for team leaders they tried were more max health, which was shelved for being too confusing for everyone. Marked for death, removed for being too punishing. Low gravity, removed for basically helping the leader abandon his team. High gravity, removed for being too intrusive on movement like double jumps and rocket jumps. Eventually they settled on what we have today, team leaders getting a dispenser. As for the rest of Valve's feedback, they remarked that the control point was confusing, that some of the smaller spaces could combine into a continuous one, and that some areas could be expanded. So that's what Egan did. Beyond that, Valve had some compliments for the map. From January to August, 65 more map versions on top of Beta 5, and the plugin by Wigooch, Watergate was finally complete. They sent the map and plugin to Valve and waited. After a month of exchanging emails back and forth, Egan finally got a confirmation. They did it. Watergate got accepted. But there was one more thing he needed to do. Obviously, Valve wouldn't run a sourcemod plugin when they could just add code to the game, so for 2 weeks, Egan had access to a private TF2 beta where he helped Valve implement player destruction officially.
Hey Valve, it's Egan on PD Watergate. So it's 7:40 a.m. 9/16/2015. I found this little strange bug. Hey Valve TF team, this is Egan on PD Watergate, September 21st, 2015, 2 o'clock p.m. I found a bug on the UFO tractor beam water condition thing. When it's about to leave, at the end, if you hold space as it's departing, then you just continue to swim. You can go through water and it still stays on you. I guess it's not the same property.
There were about 8 betas in the span of these 2 weeks, where the first week was Valve implementing the game mode, and the second week to weed out bugs. On October 6, 2015, the Invasion update was officially released. Of the maps included with the update, there it was.
Hi, my name is Gabe Newell, and welcome to Watergate.